So an interesting thing happened on last week's video where we touched on microsword. A bunch of people had questions regarding it and asking if it was the same plant as this particular plant that we're going to be going over today, which is Pygmy chainsword. So I figured why not just follow up that video with doing a video on what everybody thought that plant was, and we'll do, our own little plant guide on it. So let's get into it. So what's going on, guys? Just from h2oplants.com, and we're back again with another plant guide video. If you enjoy aquarium plants and you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. But today we are talking about Pygmy chainsword, better known as, and I'm going to probably mispronounce this, but I'm going to go to my little notes, Helanthanium tenellum. I think that's how you pronounce it. I could be wrong. Don't criticize me for that. I can't pronounce these scientific names because I haven't really ever heard anybody pronounce them. But we're talking about Pygmy chainsword, which is this guy right here, but it's also this guy right here. So we're going to explain what's going on with these two guys right here. But a lot of people were asking if microsword, which is actually Liliopsis, is the scientific name for microsword. That was in last week's video. If you missed that, you can click up top, or at the end of the video, you'll be linked over there. Check that out, because then you'll kind of understand why I'm doing this video, I guess, in a way. But Liliopsis and this plant, Pygmy chainsword, are very different. Even though microsword was called a sword plant, it's not an actual sword plant. This is an actual sword plant, though, and it has very much characteristics with most sword plants. So if you have Amazon swords or any kind of other sword plant like red Rubens or anything like that, just think of this as a dwarf version. It's just a smaller version, hence the name dwarf Pygmy chainsword or Pygmy chainsword. Pygmy just means small, essentially. What's the deal with this plant? Well, it's another grass-like plant, very similar to microsword, very similar to dwarf sage and hairgrass. Now, I will say that it is much different than hairgrass, which has needle leaves, essentially. They're the size of needles. And it's a lot different than microsword because it is an actual sword plant, which it actually grows from a center mass, which I'm going to show you on this guy right here. So this is a runner here that's actually coming off the pot here. And this is perfect for me to demonstrate what I wanted to show you with this. Is that this guy right here, this is the whole plant, right? All the leaves come out of that center mass that is right above my finger here. All the leaves come out of there. There isn't a rhizome that keeps running, that keeps putting up leaves like microsword. This is just a straight, bloop, here's the baby, and here's all the leaves. So, it's a lot different than that, but it's very similar to dwarf sage, because dwarf sage does the same thing. It has this kind of runner rope here that connects the two plants. It's like an umbilical cord here. And that allows this plant to continue feeding this plant until this one plant establishes, and then eventually this plant will put out another one, and it'll keep propagating as such. Essentially, once it gets to this size, I mean, you could even probably do it when it's a bit smaller, as long as it has like 3 to 5 leaves. You could actually just completely remove the umbilical cord if you're able to see it, and plant this somewhere else. But I like to leave them attached if you don't need to move them around. The less you fidget with your plants, the better. So essentially, to propagate these guys is just wait till they produce a runner, and then if you want, pluck it out or leave it be. I like to leave it be, but if you're really looking to carp it out, wait till it has those leaves, cut the umbilical cord, move it somewhere else, and then eventually this guy will produce another baby, and this guy will produce a baby, and you'll have 2 new babies rather than just the one that'll essentially come off of this guy. So that's a good way to get these to propagate easily. Now, you can see here that the leaves like to fold over. That is a bit different than most grass-like plants. It doesn't like to stick straight up. They like to flop over. Even underwater, they're not really growing tall per se. They're more kind of laying over. Think of them like almost like an arch, the leaves. They like to do this, kind of lay over. So they actually fill in a large space per plant because of that, because they're going to kind of overlay each other versus just sticking straight up. So like when they're sticking straight up like blades of grass, they're not kind of over winding each other like this, where they're kind of, filling in an area like that. So it really it helps to carpet out with these guys. And I do have to say that Pygmy chainsword actually is probably the fastest growing carpeting plant that is a grass-like plant. So not say faster than dwarf four-leaf clover, but definitely faster than dwarf sage, microsword, or dwarf hairgrass. I would say that this guy grows tremendously. It sends out tons of runners. So if you're really looking for a quick growing carpeting plant, this guy's going to be one for you, especially if you're looking for the grass effect, and this guy will definitely get you there. Now, I do have 2 different plants here, and I kind of wanted to go over them, but I'm just going to tell you up front here. So this one that I have, you see there's a bee on there. That's for broadleaf, and then this is the typical narrow leaf version. This is the one that we've always sold. Now they're offering Broadleaf from our suppliers. And I've had this plant now in for, I'd say maybe a little bit more than a month. And I honestly can't say definitively that I see a major difference between the leaf shapes to justify this being classified as broadleaf. I'll be honest, and I mean, typically when it comes to sales, you always want to be like, oh no, this one's definitely different. If you have this one, you want this one. No, I'm not going to BS you guys here. I don't think that the narrow leaf or the broadleaf really show that much difference, and if they do, they're minimal at best. So if you already have Pygmy chainsword, don't even bother, saying, oh, you got broadleaf, I want broadleaf now. They're, as far as I can tell, they're identical, and I don't think that anybody at home is going to notice the difference and be like, oh, you have the broadleaf variation. That's very nice. It's very different. No, it's nearly identical. So we do have both, though, if you want them on the website. I just think they're nearly identical, so there's no reason to specifically buy one just because, oh, it's different than the one I have. No. But looking at the regular version, the Pygmy chainsword narrow leaf version, we're going to just take a look real quick at this guy, because this is actually the flower stalk here that's raised up here. And sometimes it'll actually produce baby plants from this, which it doesn't look like there's any coming out of here just yet. But if this was to reach the surface of the water, it will flower, which is quite beautiful. You'll get some little, I believe these flower white, but I could be wrong. I think last time I saw them flowering white. I actually have some of these that I'm using in a tank setup downstairs that I haven't revealed to you guys yet, but hopefully it looks really cool when it's all done. Now, Pygmy chainsword is not finicky. Low to medium light is just fine. These guys are really quick growers. They're easy because they're a sword plant. Swords are just generally easy plants. They don't need a lot of light, but they do like good nutrient-rich substrate. So if you have a good substrate, some kind of aqua soil or fluorite or anything like that, they'll be a-okay. But make sure you're adding root tabs every 3 to 6 months for these guys. If you don't have root tabs, you can pick them up on our shop also. But these guys are heavy root feeders, so they're going to absorb lots and lots of nutrients at the roots. So make sure they're well fed. With most sword plants, what you want to do when trimming the plant is you only want to remove outer leaves that are forming on the plant. So we'll take this runner for instance. I'm not going to remove any leaves here because they're completely healthy, but if, say, I wanted to, I don't know if I want to break this guy. You know what? It's already broken, so I'm going to break it anyway. We're going to break the runner off. I'm sorry. It's a beautiful runner. But, so, let's get it in focus. Focus. Okay. Here we go. So you see these leaves down here. If they were damaged in a sense where they had holes or they had maybe algae on them, you would just come in here with your scissors and you would cut them down by as close to the base as you can without cutting the base. So you just want to trim off the whole leaf. You don't want to trim these guys like this, like you would like for mowing your lawn or something. You don't want to take the top off. You want to let them grow. They obviously cover a pretty decent distance. If you could see, that's at least, I would say, 4 to 6 inches in diameter. So you want to plant these guys apart and trim very, very sparingly. Don't do anything crazy with the trimming, because as you trim these guys across like this, you're damaging the leaves. Eventually, they're going to die and your plant's going to look sad. So don't do that. All right, guys, let's keep our plants looking happy. And like I said, they're not a finicky plant. Temperatures, doesn't really matter. These guys are great for larger fish. Now, I wouldn't say, 100% they're going to survive any kind of really aggressive cichlid, but goldfish, these could do well in. They could do it well in some cichlids. If you're going to do them in any kind of tank like that, keep them in the pot and let the runners just take over from here, because this is going to keep it weighted, and it's a lot easier it's a lot harder for the fish to get them out of the pot versus if you were to just take this guy and plant them down. But look at these roots, though. You see how crazy these roots are? And this thing wasn't even rooted, too. It's just literally floating in the air because the runner came off and didn't have anywhere to root, so it was just kind of floating in the water. It's pretty cool. And one other thing that I just noticed while looking at this runner here, this is actually, I guess you could call it twins. There are two. I'm not going to pull them apart. I can see it. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it. But this is one runner. And you can see here there's actually one set of leaves coming off over here and then another set of leaves coming off over there. And I believe that I could split this guy and turn it into two if I really wanted to. But I'm not going to do that because I'm just going to leave this be. I'll probably go pot it up and let it grow out, and then eventually we'll sell it. But that's pretty cool. So if you had this plant and it was, dividing like that, you could actually just chop that right there in the middle and have 2 different plants from one runner, which is pretty cool. But most swords do that, but it's very like hard to see on these smaller ones, so that's why I didn't really realize it until just now that, oh shoot, there's twins. So yeah, that's pretty cool. One other thing about the leaf shape that I wanted to note before we wrapped up here is you can see that they're kind of just long and slender leaves like that. When you first get one, typically if it wasn't converting already, you're gonna get one that has like a weird, it's almost like an oval, think of it almost like an arrowhead type tip where the top of the leaf is wider than the bottom of the leaf. You can see here. That's the immerse grown. So that's just going to eventually melt back, which is fine. But just know that the leaves are more symmetrical as they grow underwater and get used to underwater conditions. That's really it on Pygmy chainswords though. If you guys enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you hit that like button. If you want to leave me a comment down below, let me know what you think of Pygmy chainswords. Do you have any? Do you think they're cool? I personally think they're a really cool carpeting plant, so if you're looking for one like that's grass-like, very cool plant to pick up. And as always, if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. I just want to give you guys a little side note. We reached 24,000 subscribers recently, so thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And if you want to check out the last video we did on microsword that I was talking about in the beginning, click over there. If you want to check out another video that we did, I'll do a random video right here. You can click right here and check that one out, and I will see you guys next time.